Well, I'm so happy to see so many people. It's so exciting. And, you know, especially during these times that, you know, we are all struggling and getting day by day to see all these students and faculty all together. It makes me really, really happy. So, and I want to thank you all for coming today. And especially I want to thank you, Carlo Sironi, for staying up late to be with us, because in Italy it's 10 o'clock in the evening. So I don't know if you're a night person, but we want to thank you anyway for staying up to be with us. And then I want to really thank Kelly Eggers and Charles Leonardi for really been great supporters for the organization of this event. And they are really priceless. Their contribution is really priceless. And then I want to thank the Department of French and Italian and the US Center that, you know, co-sponsored this event, the Humanity Council, the Program for Italian Studies, and the Center for Human Values. We all work together to make this event happen. And everybody watched the movie during the weekend, and everybody's here today to talk to you, to ask you questions, to hear from you, to hear your voice, to hear your thoughts, to hear your own self. And that is why, rather than, you know, present you with the, you know, stereotypical bio, I would really like to hear from you. Rather than a bio, maybe if you could briefly, you know, walk us through your passion for cinema, and especially, you know, what moved that choice, your choice of embracing this form of art, embracing this journey, so that we can, you know, better understand who you are as a person and who you are as an artist. And then I would like to start from there.
Absolutely. First of all, I'm really shy, so I will try to not to be too much shy.
What about friends?
But first of all, I didn't meant to be a director. I mean, I always was a cinephile, but my dream was to be the camera operator and DOP some days. So until I was 25, I was working in the camera department. I mean, I was video assist, loader, and you know, focus puller, and so on. But at a certain moment, I understood that it wasn't my path, because I wasn't particularly good at what I was doing, and it was a little bit a daily routine. So I tried to do a short film with all the people that I've been friends with, that I made like series and movies with, and I think I was happy doing the short film. The short film was selected in a festival, and good festival. So I say to myself, let's continue. So I started quite lately. So I don't have a conscious path of like you know, study and everything. So in a way, I follow a little bit the rule of the cinephile, and of following a way your good obsession will lead you to something interesting. I mean, try to not talk. I mean, I don't know how some great director can directly talk about themselves. For me, it's a gift that they have. I don't have. I could have never done such things, because it's not the way I am. But I think in a way you have always to talk about, you know, what's in obsession is a good word for me. It's not a negative word. No, so there are some topic is not a good word, but I mean some image, some ideas that come back. So you work on it. So this was my path. Before the movie, I was working for television half a year, and working on my project the other half of the year. And then, you know, short film after short film, I met my producer, and with my screenwriter that I always work with, we write. So this is the story, I think.
Okay, so this kind of obsession, just as you called it, really motivated this choice and of yours. And then for some reason I always go back to this, kind of obsession of mine of choosing, of choice. No, it's since the subtitle I chose for this event deliberately mentions the approach to love as a choice. Perhaps maybe we could start, right from here. So that is, so Hermano's process of coming out of the tunnel implies, in the way I saw it, number one, empowerment of himself. Number two, a kind of awareness of the other and embracing the so-called duty to care. And number two, this hope in the future in which there is an us rather than an I. So in short, Hermano's past, as well as perhaps the most obvious one of Lina, is the result of a choice. So even love can be, and in my opinion, that should be choice. And have you thought about this when you envisioned Hermano's character?
The funny thing is that in a way, I understood not from the very beginning that it was a love story. That I mean, it wasn't like that. Maybe the story was like that, but I didn't understood it, because in a way the process of the movie is quite strange, because I was researching for my last short film that in a way talk about motherhood. It's called Valparaiso, and I was working with an NGO that did a lot of research around prostitution from Eastern Europe, migration, and so on. So we bump into this sort of hypothesis was at the time for them of this kind of fake adoption, because of course surrogacy is completely illegal in Italy, and there are a lot of restriction even to do it abroad. So in a way there is a lot of loophole in the adoption law, and this kind of fake adoption was intended to create, is the loophole that it's created. So I bumped before in the story than in the idea. It was strange for me, because usually I have an idea and then I turn it into a story. So there was a story, but I think this story for me, the first spark wasn't the love, but was the interpretation of a role. I mean, the things that was interesting for us was that we didn't start the movie from the point of view of the couple that is so desperate to buy a child, not from the point of view of the young woman that it's, that agrees to sell, that decide to sell her baby, but from the point of view of a young guy that just has to get money to pretend to be a father. This was the starting point. And so for me, it was a movie about identity at the beginning. Then I understood that no, it's not. It was just, a sort of intellectualization of the human beings that I had in front. So at a certain moment, I faced that, yeah, it was like that. I mean, sometimes they tell you, you can be that person, you can be that mask, that figure, and you become that figure. But it's because you are will to, to choose, as you said. I mean, in a way, there is the oldest metaphor of the world, like you're gonna learn of taking care of yourself only if you take care of someone else. I mean, it's the old, Catholic, crazy. I mean, we can go on forever on this. This is really ancient, but it was the movie. The movie for me, it's that. I mean, for me, it's a movie about attraction. It's from a movie about what does it mean to find a person that you didn't saw before because it was invisible to you, because it wasn't supposed to be visible to you, as it happens a lot of time that we are in front of people that the law, society tells that they are invisible because they are not important to us, no? So there is this moment when Hermano discovers that probably is falling in love, and he doesn't even know how to tell himself that things. For me, it was much more about that, and about the fact that when you are in that situation with an unknown, probably the way of communication are different. It's not a usual way of communication, the verbal way of communication. It's not the language of love in a way. This was, I think, the idea around how the movie, that it doesn't start as a love story. I think it turns into a love story.
Yeah, and that, it will come up in several of the questions that you're gonna hear today. Yes, and then the so-called duty to care, I don't think it's a kind of a universal law. It's not coming from any, Catholic or specific, rule of society. But
yeah, I was saying Catholic because, of course, in Italy, I mean, I'm not even baptized.
We all are. Italian, we all are, condemned to the guilt trip, as I would say. It's okay. I mean. So now I would like to pass the baton to students, and who already prepared a few questions. And I would like to start with David Eniola, who prepared the question for you. And let me know, David, if you have your question ready.
Yeah, I have my question. So I guess I want to know what inspired this story. Was it a situation that you've seen before, or was it just the fact that surrogacy is illegal in Italy?
As I said, I bumped into it was like opening a newspaper and finding an interesting news item. Of course, it wasn't like this because I was discussing with my friends that work at the NGO, but we have like, okay, I studied the adoption law. There is this loophole because the adoption between the same family is different. There is no ranking. It's totally different from the normal adoption in Italy. So there is this loophole. Probably they're doing like this. They found some girl from Eastern Europe. So I have a sort of log line. It was strange, like finding a sort of synopsis of a movie and how do you want to do it. So for me, it was much more. The funny thing is that, of course, it's research that leads you there. I mean, my last two short films, I made 3 short films, not so much, but the last 2 are in a way about parenthood and motherhood, in a very different way. There are very different language, even visual language, but they are around the same thing. So when I found this hypothesis, I say, okay, I'm gonna do this movie. It was like sort of like a little gift that they gave me, at least for me.
Thank you. And there was another question from Magnolia.
Hello. I have my question here. I said, I noticed a lot of the shots that you used in your film were used in a way that intentionally constricted the frame to like a smaller area. So like zooming into settings or like kind of specific parts of settings to reveal larger amounts of information. And I was wondering if this was inspired by any other like director or photographer, or why you chose to do this.
First of all, I simply use the Academy, the old format, because first of all, I love it. I mean, I'm a great fan of the movies of the 50s. For me, in the 50s, there was this magic moment when the cinema was at is maximum strength, but at the same time wasn't so conscious. Wasn't so, wasn't even conscious of its own power. So, I mean, movies from the 50s usually have this format, and this format is basically think for character based. It's character based. I mean, my movie is clearly very character based. I mean, I have few locations, and most of all, these few locations are indoor. 95% of the time, I think we are indoors. So this kind of format is thinking for that. And then I was thinking that in a way, a movie that was it's an inner movie, everything is happening inside the character. I mean, maybe they are changing a little bit and they're showing just that little bit that we can maybe feel it. Even to have a still camera was was linked to the tone of the movie. And a lot of melody that I love are, you know, I try to don't look at too many movies before, but actually I look at some of the movie that I think I have grown up. And so most of all they are Japanese. As I said, I'm a really great fan, and I watch mostly the Kenji Mizoguchi movie, a lot of Mizoguchi movie, and a lot of Mikio Naruse movie. That it's another great director from the 40s, the 50s, that made that wonderful simple mellow. So I try to use a little.
Okay, I think he
Still.
He's back.
I was still.
There was a moment of, you know, when you paused, but now you're back.
Okay, I'm back. So you got it, the end of the sentence. Okay.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Thank you, Carlo.
Well,
so there is a question from Daniel Knapp.
Yes, I noticed that throughout the movie, your scenes tended to have a very bluish tinge, except for certain scenes, for instance, the junkyard scene. So I was wondering what came behind the choice of color in your movie scenes.
The idea was quite simple. I mean, I really think that quoting that famous, at least in Europe, it's quite famous, graphic novel blue is the warmest color. For me, there is, beside the fact that there is really a study on color, that we have an emotional response on some colors. For me, really, blue is one of the more emotional colors. So I have the scene front. I start painting the hole in blue, and then I start to paint everything in blue, because I think it was good to give a sort of abstraction to the house, to don't make it feel like an absurd house, but at the same time a space a little bit suspended, so at the end the costume designer like it. We have the blue coat of Lena, and then another blue things. I mean, it was a sort of domino where everything turned blue at the end.
Thank you. And Maggie Esposito has a question.
Yeah, hi. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the process of like balancing a character's internal identity with what shows up on the screen.
Okay, well, what a question. I mean, it depends. I mean, in a way, it's true that you have to follow your instinct, because I think that, for example, I know that Hermano was on the edge of being unempathetic, but I think that if you have an interesting path, and not just, everyone tells us that in storytelling, the character has to change, has to grow, has to become another person. Sometimes it's like this, sometimes it's not. I mean, but I know, for example, that Hermano was on the edge to be unempathetic for most of the movie. But I think that if you're following your instinct and you are sincere, it's gonna work. I mean, I don't know how to explain, but for example, for everyone that was reading, was strange that Hermano didn't have a goal, Hermano gets some money, but it's not that it's supposed to do something with this money. Usually, the character wants something, someone arrives and say, do you want the tools that you need to have that thing? It wasn't like this in the movie, and everyone was saying, no, it's strange. But I think it wasn't, because in a way, there must be always a reason. I mean, for me, the reason why Hermano didn't have a purpose was the most blank point of view that I could have on Surrogacy. I mean, it's someone that is not supposed to be involved in the future of the baby. I mean, he doesn't care. So in a way, it could have been emotionally blank. And so maybe watch the whole things with more with more, you know, clearness. But you know, it's difficult to have a rule about what you ask, because in a way, if there is a reason for every choice that I think, at least for me, if there is a reason, even if it's absurd, for every choice that you're doing in storytelling, it's gonna work. If there is no reason, probably it's not gonna work. Even if it's cool, even if it has been done 1,000 times, at the end it's not gonna work. At least this is my opinion.
There is a question from Amy, and I don't think that Amy is here, but her question was, what inspired the scene with the candles when the light goes off? And that's the scene actually when they talk about the name of the baby. And so maybe you want to elaborate a little bit if there is any coincidence that the light goes off and the baby's name comes up. And
no, it was much more simple. You know, there is this wonderful French painter, Delatour, that do this wonderful painting in the dark with like some candle, and I really love Delatour. I always been a fan. And first of all, I think that it's, you know, as in our life, sometimes we are prepared to say something very emotional to our partner, to our friends, when there is not that much light. I mean, it's good, we have the blackout, so, you know, it's easier to say I love you in the dark than in the bright light. So, because they are not that used to know what love is, I was thinking that darkness could have been interesting. Actually, I was afraid that it looks too biblical, no? You know, but maybe it's okay, even if it's look biblical.
Thank you, Carlo. So I would like to just open the stage now. I have more questions, but if there is anybody right now extemporaneously who would like to ask a question to Carlo.
Okay.
I can go. Hi,
Yeah.
sorry. So there's one scene where they drove the baby around in a car to help the baby fall asleep. Was this based at all like around your own experiences, maybe as a child or in real life?
No, there was no. I mean, I don't have. First of all, I'm not a father. I have a niece, and I basically really grow up there in a way. But no. There was the difficult things for this movie was like, because I did a lot of research on the real case, on real deposition about a woman that has gone through that. It was a little bit to forget about that, and you know, to build a character and to remember that you're doing cinema. So it's always a daydream, you know, even if it's a tough movie, there is a part of daydream. So no, there was nothing biographical. No.
I have a question. I was, you know, you came very highly promoted from our professors. Said this is a very good film, and so I was very excited to watch the film, and I was trying to watch it like a student of film, and I was thinking of this Chekhov gun principle, like any detail that is left, look for it. What will it mean? And I was wondering and also because it's not, you know, we're learning some Italian, but it's not our native. Trying to read and listen, when they talk about the relationship, the protagonist's father seems to, like, he committed suicide, and you start to see some of the relationship with the uncle, and there's maybe something about the gambling addiction and the uncle and the father. I was taking all these mental notes, and then at the end I thought, oh, I was sort of looking for some more payoff there, but then I realized maybe this was just backdrop story to sort of give you some insight to the relationships. But I was just curious for more elaboration on if there had been ideas or scenes that were cut, or what the thought process was, because I thought it was fascinating to have a small window into Hermano's life and his uncle and his father and everything.
No, it wasn't cut off any principal scene. there was the important things for me, as you said, it was much more to highlight the relationship than to give, you know, a sort of like line or storyline into the movie. Because the important things for me, in a way, it's always we have like a joke in the Italian, you know, environment of cinema, that we say that we cannot escape to talk about family. You know, Italian cinema cannot escape. Almost every cinema in the world, but particularly Italian, we cannot escape. Some few masterpieces like. Really go through without talking about family, and my movie was clearly about family. So it was important to me we show, you know, a real couple, a fake couple, a potential couple, but the relationship between the family, the like, you know, the uncle and the nephew are not like you know, like family, like we are used to see family, to depict family, but it's like a transition, you know. So I to a little bit destroy the cliche that if we are in family, we have to be together, have the same goal. No, it's not always like this. So this was much more the intention. In a movie full of mothers, it was interesting to give a sort of shadow of a father for Hermano. To, you know, to depict something else. Of course, it's a movie that use few you know, expressive means to tell things. So in a way, to say too much about her past was really out of the way, out of the language. So we never intend to say more than we said. Yeah.
Thank you. More questions?
And I have a question. And like, so first of all, like, I don't know, like anybody else said, I really like your movie, and I'm sorry to say until that I'm not actually a big fan of Japanese movies, so I didn't actually know the movies you mentioned, but I'm a big fan of Taiwanese movie, and there was a movie called A Sign, kind of similar name, and it also talked about like the darkness of society. So yeah, just if you're interested, I just wanted to tell that.
Son by Usha Shen?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, Usha Shen movie. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Yangon Pu Zhao in Chinese, but yeah, it was so similar, and I loved like enjoying seeing the similarity to some extent. And I also like the contrast between the reality and artificial, especially like real mother vs like foster mother, and the real life vs the game machine, like addiction, etc. And but yeah, like now listening to your explanation behind like, or like the motivation to take this movie, and how is a movie different from like documentary? Like, why did you decide to actually hire actors to take movies instead of taking the like real life example that you saw in the NGO, like directly into this movie? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. First of all, I did a sort of like, not short, but like medium length documentary back back then, and it was hell for me. I mean, I don't want to work on documentary. So far I didn't, because for me it's really difficult. I don't like. First of all, because it's really complicated the way you have to build the language in a documentary. It's much more complicated than fiction, I think, and I'm not confident at all. And so for the movie, I think that reality was telling me a very cruel tale, and my idea was to make it tender, you know, to take this cruel script, this cruel environment, and turn it into something that has this like spoon of tenderness, that was spoon of sugar that we didn't expect, because I think it was interesting. About the fact that you mentioned Wu Shashen and so on, for me it's a great movie, and I remember I watched it because I'm an incredible fan of Taiwanese movie too. I mean, for me, most of all, Edward Yang. If you have the chance, Edward Yang was probably one of the 5 greatest director alive in the 2000. Mm-hmm. And he did, unluckily, he did like few movies. They are very long. They are wonderful, especially Brighter Summer Day is a masterpiece. Please take your time now that you are like now that you're locked down. I watched it like 1 week ago for the 3rd time. It's called A Brighter Summer Day. It's a story about the childhood of the director in Taiwan in the 50s, and it's a masterpiece. It's life. It's like watching Fanny Alexander. And if you have time, please watch that and Yi. It's another great Taiwanese movie. So yeah, I'll stop now for the Taiwanese spotlight. But
we will, Carlo, we will. So Tommy has a question for you.
Yeah, I had a question about a specific scene near the end of the movie. So it was kind of a strange scene. I think it's the night before they give the baby to Hermano's uncle and aunt, but Lena kind of is talking playfully to Soleil, and she calls her ugly quite a few times and says, you know, you're ugly like me, you're ugly like your father. And yeah, I just couldn't make heads or tail of it. And I guess, yeah, I don't want to just ask like, what does it mean? But I'd love to hear your thoughts behind that particular scene.
Yeah, absolutely. It's strange that since some people get it, some people, of course, don't, because it's on the edge. And maybe it's very from Roman and from Rome, this way of like using a negative depicting, tell in a nice way to say the opposite, to say that you are beautiful. So it's a way, and I discussed with Sandra, with the actress, that of course she's Polish and she learned Italian from the movie. So if in Poland it's like that, it's even for them, I say, yeah, we use it. So it's this way to say you are beautiful. You are beautiful, but you're gonna be, they will tell you that you're gonna be ugly because of me, because I'm ugly, but you're gonna be beautiful. So this was the intention of the scene. It's very on the edge of, of being, you can read it in the other way, but this was the intention, yeah.
Interesting. Simone has a question for you, Carlo.
Okay.
Hi, I mean, great movie. First of all, I have a question. You know, I'm a background reader. I mean, right now I'm looking at everybody's backgrounds, and I see that many, some of us, I don't know, Max or Kelly, have paintings. They have, they have, but I see that your the space behind you is very sparse. That there's no many paintings. And reflecting on the film, I think there's only one painting, and not in the house, which is the limbo that you described so well. I mean, the abstract house of Hermano and Lena, the place of suspension. I think there's only possibly the picture of the father, a photo of the father, a snapshot of him, but nothing else. So was this, how do you comment upon this? And then what do you have behind you, which I really...
Well, I can show you. I mean, first of all, to answer the question, yeah, there is the photo of the father, and there is a small, horrible, but beautiful for me, painting of a ship's blue from the 80s, very small. And you can see it in the scene when Bianca is trying to milk, to breastfeed, from the biberon Sole, but Hermano is looking at. So, but it's quite detailed. And about that, there are two paintings. So I can show it to you. I mean, it's not. Wait, I will light the stuff. This is a painter that was a friend of my father, so because it was my father's house. And then there is a great artist that I love is Gerhard Richter. So there is a Richter from the series painting, and this is a photo that I did of one of my first girlfriend. Yeah, so that there are some paintings. Come on, it's not completely empty, no?
Okay, I agree to that. Yeah, there are some. Yeah, I forgot about the scene of the sea. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, of course, I saw it more time than you, so it's easier.
So we had the privilege to, be with you and in your house, you see. So there is a question for Fabian, who is not here. He wasn't able to be here, but he asked me to ask this question. And the question is, what does Ermanno's character say about masculinity in Italy? Do you see your film as a broader meditation on the relationship between capitalism and sexuality, reproduction, and gender relations?
Another easy question. Now, first of all, I think that there is one thing that I discovered after the movie that maybe it was an intention but wasn't conscious. I mean, there is always this depiction, especially from Rome, of this aggressive manhood from Italy. That, of course, it's around. I mean, it's a very masculine society, Italy. This is true, but it's changing so fast. Or at least it's not the only depiction. I mean, we have to give the other side of the coin. So I think that my intention was that. I mean, for example, I discuss a lot with my friend when we were young. There is always this, even about fatherhood, there's always this tale that, for example, a friend of mine, a very young friend of mine, was, when he was like 19, the girl was remained pregnant, and they decided together, like as a couple, to interrupt the pregnancy. And for him, it was a great shock. I mean, there's always this depiction that man doesn't give a fuck, and I thought that it was interesting, at least from my point of view, to depict a man that maybe from a young man, that maybe at the beginning you're watching him and you think, oh yeah, it's gonna be like this, but then it's not, or at least maybe it doesn't have the tools to show it, to talk about it, but maybe it's like this. So in a way, I think it was at least for me, that was the intention, but wasn't conscious,
Sure. Thank you. Any questions?
I had a question, if I may. Carlo, since you spoke about Italian film previously, you spoke about Japanese film as well. One thing that struck me while seeing the film was just how untypical it is for an Italian film, the very sparse setting, the very sparse soundtrack as well. And my first association was, in fact, either a Northern European or Eastern European film. And I was wondering if you were thinking about that as well, because it is, in its anonymity and its sparseness and its crudeness, sort of quite atypical for Italian cinema.
I have to say that I know I'm a great fan of Polish cinema, but I didn't know that much, for example, cinema from Romania. I mean, I'm not that much into Eastern Europe cinema. So in a way, I think that maybe it was the fact that there was Sandra there, of course, shaping the movie, because I searched for this was another thing that was really changing the tone of the movie, because I searched all over Eastern Europe, because in real life, the ranking was of women involved into fake adoption or like baby trafficking was like Ukraine, Bulgaria, Romania, and Poland. Poland, that of course is much more richer country than the others, was there because of the adoption law, because there is a ban. They are protesting right now in the streets trying to change the law. So in a way, when I find Sandra, and I search all over Eastern Europe in those countries at the beginning through self-tape, when I found Sandra with this like, you know, childish and light touch and this ghostly touch that in a way is really Polish. And it was unexpected for me. I really like her proposition of the character. Even that changed a little bit the movie. And I think maybe it was, you know, a lot of people say to me that it looks Eastern European, but I think it wasn't an intention, at least for me.
Thank you, Carlo. Are there any more questions for Carlo? There were a few students, Carlo, who asked about the ambiguity of the end of the film.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the ambiguity. For me, there is one thing that is the most important things for the last scene. Of course, it's a movie that everything is like implosive, no? And finally, at the end, there is a sort of explosion, and even, you know, this the body speaks for itself and not the brain, no? So there is this sort of like extra level. But beside that, I think that the most important thing for me was to show the other side of the coin of Lina. I mean, Lina has suffered so much through the movie, and maybe we saw it, we glimpsed it, but we are not sure. And in the very scene, we understood that yes, she has suffered. I mean, at least it was the intention. The idea was that, to show how painful it was for her to go through the path that she went. So the most important things was that for me it's a ending full of hope. I mean, we tried during screenwriting to have all the three of them like running away, but we didn't believe in that because I think even you know, the idea is that they are born again now, and maybe they are not strong enough yet to be a family, a proper family as we intended with a baby and everything. But maybe they will be a family. Maybe they will be two better human beings. I mean, it was a little bit fake to have Hermano, Lina, and Sole going away, or, you know.
And that is why the title of the movie then.
Yeah, I mean, the title of the movie came from the fact that there is one of the best friends of my sister that has a daughter, and it was a little bit the baby that I grew up with when I was a teenager, and she's called Sole. That it's funny because in Italy, Sole is a male name for the son, but it's a female name for the daughter, no? So there is this sort of ambiguity, and in a way, there, you know, the cliche metaphor that, you know, the sun is the brightest star of all, and every planet surrounds the sun, so every character surrounds the baby. So it was, you know, depicting a little bit the storyline. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Students? Anybody?
I have a question. My question is, what was your intention behind like using the symbolism behind like the gambling machine? Like, was there any like thought behind that? Why did you choose that as a distractory method instead of anything else?
Okay, actually, you know, this is the kind of things that maybe you are trying to write, you have an idea, a complex idea. At the beginning, Hermano was like, you know, training dogs. Then you turn around in your neighborhood and you saw that like bunch of like teenager as Hermano in the same environment of Hermano. They're passing their afternoon like drinking and playing slot machine, because in Italy we have a large number of slot machine. We almost making the same amount of money than the states where gambling is allowed. So in a way, and we are such much smaller state. So there was a moment when I said, okay, this is true. This is happening now, and this is like, and there is this sort of structure in the movie that it's, there is a repetition and variation. There is this great Japanese director Yasuhiro Ozu that start from that structure for create some story or relationship. So in a way, for me, it was interesting that we show Hermano doing repetitive things, and then something changed, but we almost didn't notice, and then she arrives and something really changed. This sort of structure was even the same structure that we have in the music, on the original music of Teoniki, that is a Polish composer, very young, that was the first time that I worked with her, and we work on the idea of loop, have a loop, electronic loop, and then a slight change to build the music. So I think it was like related to all this stuff.
Jennifer had a question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so hi, as a public policy student, I wanted to ask, has the debut of your movie started any discussions on Italian surrogacy laws? And also, would you characterize your film as an Italian film for the contemporary age, or is it more representative of Europe and its politics as a whole?
First of all, unfortunately, in Italy, there is no discussion about surrogacy. I mean, the movie was released right after Venice in 2019. And even it was, of course, a small release, not in a great number of copies, but there was some article, but in Italy, everything related to surrogacy and to, something similar is really, really stuck. So it didn't. I hope that not for the movie, but even for, because for me, of course, every law about surrogacy tells a lot about every nation state, it's different from all over Europe. But I was happy because after the movie was released in French, and now is released in Spain. Luckily, the cinema are open in Spain. I don't know how many people are going there, but I'm not asking. But there is a great debate there about surrogacy, because the left has started to have a position against surrogacy in Spain that is quite unusual, or it's particular in a way. So I'm receiving the article, the reviews, and there is a great debate, even using the film as an example. So I think maybe in country where there is a debate, it could create debate. In Italy, I have to admit that we are really, really stuck about that, really, really slow about everything related to the concept of life. It's really untouchable, because 3 kilometers away from my house, there is a small state inside my hometown. I don't know if you heard about it. It's called Vatican, and we cannot do a lot of things because there is this state inside our capital. So there nothing is really everything is moving so slow. Just because of that, I mean, it's not a critic to that, but it's the Italian politics that it's bending from ever to the Vatican. So it's as it is. Yeah. Now everyone is not speaking suddenly.
No, they are used to this kind of discourse. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. Any more questions?
I have a question. I arrived a bit late, so sorry if you answered previously. But similar to what someone said earlier about visual storytelling, I think a movie has so much to tell, not just through dialogue or audio, but also through visually. such as background, painting, stuff like that. But one thing I am always looking for in movies is color, and how color can tell like the emotions of a person, their personality traits, and how it proceeds. And one thing that stood out to me, and I didn't catch on to it till the middle of the film, was that, I'm forgetting her name. I am so sorry. The female character, I'm blanking on her name. She always wears pink, and then the male character always wears blue. And at first I thought it was like, oh, it's obvious because it's like a blue for boy, pink for girl, and since she's pregnant, there's gonna be a newborn baby. But then I'm also wondering if this is also like playing a role into saying like they could possibly be a family, or they're kind of going through a rebirth or reborn, kind of rediscovering themselves, and seeing how the color blue and pink really plays into not just the baby itself, but into the character's personalities, traits, and the struggles they're currently going through.
No, actually, she has a blue coat. So there is something pink that she's wearing from a certain part of the movie. It's a pullover, and she has this pink dress during the party scene. But she has, and it wasn't intended like he's wearing blue, she's wearing pink. No, it wasn't intended like that in a way. It wasn't meant like that. So I don't know. I as I said before, I think really blue for me, and there is an emotional response, and the complementary color of blue, of the azure, is pink. So I love to work on complementary color because they are so good to watch if it's not so obvious. So we had this idea with the costume designer that at a certain moment, okay, we're gonna start to use pink more and more from the middle of the movie, or I don't remember when. But it wasn't a gender thought, no.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Gaetana had a question for you, Carlo.
Okay.
Well, first of all, welcome to Princeton, and I've been very interested in hearing how humble you are in presenting your film. You were recommended to me today by one of the foremost Italian film critics. And I know why, because you have a look. This is your first film, but definitely you have a look. And I think you mentioned, and I even regret saying that most of the Italian new filmmakers, the very young ones, have a very flat look, all identical, at times technically very poor, but you have your own signature. And you mentioned that you began working in the camera department.
Yeah.
And so what camera did you choose? Do you like to operate? Because that is what actually creates the signature in a filmmaker. And you can see from the beginning when a filmmaker had the passion, and not simply making a film. So can you talk a little more about your experience in the camera department, the camera you selected? And we have had great cinematographers. If you were to choose one, which one would you like to work with?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you. No, first of all, I wanted to shoot on film, but I couldn't because it was too expensive. And second, I couldn't work with my usual DP. So I had, of course, a sort of list of DP that I love, and there was Gergely Poharnok in those lists. Gergely is Hungarian, but he has worked in Italy. He has done like 4 or 5 film, and in Italy he did a short film with Paolo Sorrentino. He was a super talented and quite well-known cinematographer. So I asked him to work together, and he liked the script. So we went through that, but we couldn't afford the film because it was too expensive and not too sure. So we shoot on digital, and in digital you don't have too much choice about the camera. I mean, there is the red and the Alexa, and the Aricam Alexa. We went to the Aricam Alexa because in general, we want to have a softer look. But what gives us this soft, desaturated look to the movie are the choice of the lens. Because Gergely suggests to me to use a very, very old set of lenses that is called the Cook S2, S3. That it's a series of lenses from the 50s that has this quality of a natural vignetture, sort of like circle around the frame, no?
Yes.
Natural. And tone that are really, really soft. Sometimes you can't even see, you know, the focus. I mean, for the focus puller, it's L, but it was giving this, you know, every gray, every black is gray. There is no contrast. The whole movie is post-produced for that goal. So yeah, as I said, because I trust a lot my cinematographer for the look we discussed a lot, but for the language I'm much more used to have everything before, because I cannot improvise. I'm terrible in improvising, so I basically write every shot before to have the location, then I change it when I have the location, then I give it to my DOP, then he makes notes, and then we have a list of shots with the lens, the wide, the direction and everything. And this was like 95% of the stuff that you have seen in the movie, it was written before. Because I think that there are some movies that must be found on set and some movies that has been found before, no? Mm-hmm. So yeah, this was, I think, the process with my DOP was that we work more on building the visual idea of the movie before shooting than during the shooting.
No, thank you so much, because the idea of working also with older lenses and trying to adapt them to the new cameras gives you a very different look. And I have at home some lenses from World War II and some from the 30s. And especially filmmakers from Asia do work a lot with these lenses. So your look was a look that takes a lot of care and knows who is working with the lenses and the filters. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you. So I would like to wrap it up and give one last question, just if there is anybody who has one last question. No? Dallas, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have one. I apologize if this was already asked, but you talked a little bit earlier about how one of the endings you were considering is having the three of them run away together. Were there any additional endings that you were considering?
I think no, I mean, there was a moment when, when you are editing, editing is great. It's the best moment of the world, but you are really like weak and you can really lose your mind in a way. So there was like 3 days when I was sure that I have to cut the last scene and finish the movie in the fake interrogation with the social worker, when Hermano goes through the rehearsal of that he will have with the social worker, and to cut like this in a very cold with no hope and no payoff. And my editor was like, okay, it's gonna pass, and in 2 days it's gonna pass. So it was the other alternative ending that we had, but it didn't work, of course.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
Close this conversation with this ending, and I wanted to thank you all of you who made it today, students, faculty, everybody, but especially you, Carlo.
No, are you kidding? It was a great pleasure.
It was a treat for us to watch these movies and to talk to you, to chit chat with you, and I really wanted to express all our, gratitude for you being with us today. And we wish you all the best. And
thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Take care and have fun. Thanks a lot.
Thank to you. Good luck with everything.
Ciao Anna, grazie.